Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to another episode of Heart to Heart with Bree. And tonight we have Shirley Barclay. This is not her first time on the show. Shirley, would you like to introduce yourself to the viewers?
Sure. I'm Shirley Barclay, and I'm a therapist, coach, and I just love people. So I'm looking forward to sharing with you tonight.
Would you like to tell the viewers about the new coaching thing that you just started?
Yes, I've just launched a coaching program for couples. So if you know any couples who need coaching, who wants to mobilize their marriage, feel free to contact me. And I think there'll be information in the link or on the webpage, on
Well,
the
on my
Facebook page.
Facebook wall, I
Yeah.
have the flyer that you used for today, so the information is on my wall. All you have to do is look on my Facebook wall.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem, Sister Shirley. So, I have to add. So, the tonight's topic is: Does the body keep score? So that'll be my first question: Does the body keep score?
Definitely. Our bodies are amazing. And when we've had experiences, especially traumatic experiences, it impacts our body. It changes our brain. And so it's important to recognize that and to get healing for traumas.
How do our mental, emotional, and physical health work together, as far as helping the body to keep score?
Okay. The thing is that it's all works together. We only separate like mental, physical, all that just to study about it, just for academics. But really, everything works hand in hand. So when we are in a traumatic situation, the chemicals are released in our body to our brain. The fight or flight, we goes in fight or flight or freeze mode. And those chemicals, when they're released, they create the adrenaline flow. We have epinephrine, norepinephrine, all those chemicals that prepare us to act. And some situations we're not able to act because of whatever the trauma might be. And so those chemicals are reduced and we go into depression. So after every high is a low. And so when you have those childhood adverse experiences, then they impact you for the rest of your life.
If we are not balanced in each of these areas, does our body send out like a warning signal?
Yes, the easy illustration to use with that is if we have a car and the tires are not balanced. Like we have some of them air up more than the other and their alignment is not right. Then some cars have the little sensors that let you know because it's gonna make your ride uncomfortable. You're gonna hear like the noise letting
Yes.
you know that something is wrong. So yes, when we're out of balance, we know. We can tell that something is wrong. And a lot of times my clients will say, I just feel off, like something is
Yes.
off. And you can tell that that's not your normal self.
Does spirituality play a role in our well-being?
Definitely. We all are spiritual beings, whether we want to accept it or not. We're social beings, we're spiritual beings, of course, we're physical and mental. So sometimes people may not recognize or may not decide what they want to believe in, but they believe in something. So spirituality is important because we all are designed to believe in something outside ourselves. So no matter what it may be, even if you think that you don't believe, then that's believing because
Yes.
it's choosing not to believe in something specific.
How important is it to take time for self-care?
It's of major importance because in the world today, we get busy. We get busy and distracted, and sometimes we forget. Some people tell me they forget to eat, or they go to bed late, or they, you know, didn't think about taking care of themselves, or didn't realize they were so angry, or that they were running on E, like just fumes because they have been so tired. So it's very important. Self care is very important because you could only give what you have, and if you're not putting back rejuvenating, then you're going to be irritated, you're going to be irritable, and you're going to be miserable. So it's important to take care of yourself so you can be available to yourself and to others.
How important is it to see a therapist? Does
Well,
that play a role in our health?
yes, I tell teenagers go to therapy. When they go to college, I say go to college, go to counseling. Because just like how you go through your stuff to decide what you're going to take, what you're going to leave, as we grow up, we have different encounters. And based on our home, we have to decide what was emotionally impactful in a negative way, what was emotionally impactful in a positive way. And we have to decide what do we want to take to the next generation? How do you want to do things differently? What kind of woman we want to become, what kind of man we want to become. So focus on that becoming, because often if we're not careful, then we just slide into maybe what our parents did or the things that we don't want to do is what we end up doing because that's what we know. So it's important to be intentional about changing changing for the next generation, putting the effort and being intentional about making the effort that you need to not to do the same things that you didn't like.
Now, I would like you to address there's a misconception about seeing a therapist, especially I can say that in the Black community, a lot of people I've spoken with, they seem to think that it's like a sign of weakness, or they think like they're going out and they're exposing themselves or telling their business to a stranger. I would
Mhm.
like you to address that because I personally have benefited from therapy. I talk about it all the time. And I think it takes courage and strength to take that
Yeah.
step. So I'd like you to address that, especially for men.
Yeah. Well, thank God that it's changing. The stigma towards therapy is changing slowly, gradually in this next generation. So that's a good thing. I'm seeing more young people who are taking it as part of their care to get therapy, and they're encouraging their peers to do the same. So that's a good thing because it's just like we need it for prevention,
Yes.
and the sooner we do it, the better because then we have less cleanup. When we wait until we make mistakes and we go through all kinds of stuff, then it's a lot more to clean up and to get you back on track. So the sooner you go to therapy, the better because it helps with your launching. So when you getting ready to launch into a field or launch into life, go to therapy so that you can have a healthier launch. And then from there, you're able to build healthy relationships and healthy families.
Now, for someone that, like, I remember there was a stage in my life where I had a lot of panic attacks, and it was a very unpleasant experience. When a person gets to that stage where they're having panic attacks, what is their body trying to say to them? I mean, what is the cause? I mean, I used to feel overwhelmed, and then it's hard to explain, but that feeling of like you feel as if you're dying. That's the best way
Mhm.
to describe it. And it's a very scary feeling.
Yeah.
What gets the body to that point? What is the body trying to say to that person that's going through that panic attack?
The body is trying to say you need help. It's overwhelmed, you're out of control. It's saying help, it's screaming for help. And you feel it like you're going to die because your heart rate increases, you're
Yes.
sweating. Some people, they just get like their hands are sweating, they're trembling, so it's a very scary, like you said, experience. And it lasts up to like 20 minutes, but that 20
Yes,
minutes seems like hours
it
just
does.
because it's so intense. And it's your body telling you that things are out of whack. In your mind and body, the connection is unstable. Things are out of place. And you need to regain control because you feel out of control of your body. And so we use different physical movements to help you regain control. We use relaxation techniques, being mindful techniques, so that you being present and taking control of what's going on in the present. But also you have to go back and clean out some of the stuff that's feeding into the fear that's creating the panic attacks. Because if you don't clean out the old stuff, then it continue to feed it, and so you still have the panic.
Yes. Um, does nutrition play a role in helping our bodies?
Yes, we need good nutrition. If just how we nourish the body, we have to nourish the brain. And like you say, it's all connected. So we can't separate it. And if we think we're just eating for our body health, our body includes our brain. And so we need to make sure that we get our omegas to nourish the brain. That's the healthy fats. And we need to have healthy sugar in terms of fruits and whole sugars and not just the processed sugars, because that's what our brain thrive on. And of course, water. We need water to help to flush the chemicals out of our brain so that things don't build up, and also to keep the conduction happening. Our brain is electrochemical, so the electrical impulse need water in order to send those signals through the axons to the nervous system. So we have the nervous system working there, and also with our neurons in the brain. So it's important that we have water and food, healthy food. We need the omegas, which we get from things like walnuts, and you know that because the
Yeah.
walnut looks like your brain, so you know it's good for your brain. And also from sunflower seeds and omega fats, and like other things like coconut and also avocados. So those foods are important for our brain health and of course our body health too, because we need omegas.
Would that help someone that like may have like dementia runs in my family?
Mm.
Are there any particular foods or anything that may help delay or, help with that whole dementia situation?
Mhm. I'm not really mm, versed in the dementia per se, but I know with brain health, we always recommend that you get enough sleep.
Yeah.
The sleep impacts it, and also avoiding avoiding too many chemicals. Certain chemicals they're saying they're affecting, and now they're saying diabetes is related to it. So there's new research that's coming up for the studies on the memory studies are changing right now. There's been new research about the link with diabetes and the link with other mental health. So it's really in process now. But I'm sure food definitely has something to do with it too, because we are
There's
what we eat. Yeah.
Yes. We have a question here. Mark Titus, welcome, Mark. Thanks for tuning in. He's asking, what are the steps involved in helping someone recover mentally and emotionally after experiencing manipulation, control, or prolonged emotional influence?
Mhm. Intensive therapy, it includes going through a debriefing process or desensitization process where we talk about what happened and look at the patterns and help to prevent going there. Sometimes people have flashbacks or they have what we call just heightened alertness, hypervigilance, where they're not able to turn off because they're constantly in defense mode, trying to ward off those emotional attacks. And so we help with that in terms of helping you to recognize when something is really happening, when it's not real, but you're just flashing back. So understanding that and then working on prevention. What you're going to do when this is happening, recognizing that it is happening, what it is, and then what you can do to get through it. And so we work on helping you to get through it by positive self messages and also relaxation techniques so that you know what's happening. This is what you're going to do. You don't want to try to ignore it or push it back because it's going to make it worse. You have to acknowledge it and you have to talk yourself through it and work through it. Sometimes, if you're having a hard time talking through it, we use the body movements to help you with that. And also, because of the, if you have that many PTSD symptoms, which is post traumatic stress disorder symptoms, then you need intensive for a little while until you're able to talk yourself through it. Because the therapist will help you to talk yourself through it. They will do it for you until you're able to do it yourself. So they'll talk you down, we call it, until you're able to calm yourself. And then they're able to teach you some emotional regulation skills as well. Because regulating your emotions is going to be important. So they will also teach you what to do to prevent. So when you're just feeling the symptoms coming on, is the best time to work on the prevention, to work on the deep breathing, to work on um, refocusing and getting in a space where you can be intentional about being present, what you're experiencing, what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what you're hearing. And that way you're taking control of your body.
Now, for what Mark is describing, is it common for someone in a situation like that to turn to alcohol, drugs, or like maybe even go as far as having a sexual addiction, trying to like numb whatever it is that, to numb the pain that they're experiencing?
Yes, definitely. Because a lot of times people do what we call self medication, and that's either using marijuana, drugs, alcohol. Some people use food. So it could be anything to numb the pain because they want to forget about it. But when the whatever they use is worn off, they're still right back in the same place. So that's why we recommend avoiding those things because then you limit your range of feelings and then you feel stuck and you feel numb and you feel like you're just going through the motions. You're just surviving. You're not really living. And so that's why we want you to go to therapy because trying to escape, some people even escape through gambling or they
Yeah.
escape through all kinds of behaviors that's not healthy. And so it's better to learn healthy coping skills so that you don't go further into more problems. Because when you drink, you become depressed because that's a depressant. When you use other drugs, you're not there, you're not clear. So you just going through the motions with your life. It
Yes.
affects your employment, it affects your whole functioning. So that's why we don't want you to take what seemed to be an easy out, but it complicates everything.
Yes, it does. I'd like to welcome Dr. Joan Thaxter Randall. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I would say, would you say for a person that, because you did mention food earlier, a person who's struggling with depression and they may turn to food like, they're just going to sit in front of the television and just eat themselves till they can't eat anymore. I'd like you to explain to the viewers like how counterproductive that is. I mean, I've had my struggles in that area, and I can tell you it's like it doesn't really do anything. Like you said, it's a temporary fix, and then you're right, you feel worse after. So I'd like to ask you, why do we end up feeling worse? Because at the moment, when you're indulging in whatever it is and it feels good at the time, why is there that, like, for instance, what's that drink, the drink that they have, the drinks that they have with a lot of caffeine? I've heard a lot of people say that,
Energy drinks, yeah.
yeah, the energy drinks, and how alert they are for a little while, but then they talk about that crash, you
Mhm.
know. So it's like if you're going through that crash, to me that sounds like it would be painful,
Mhm.
like, but why would we keep going back? You know, because it is counterproductive.
Because it's an addictive cycle. And now they're starting to put more warnings on those energy drinks because a lot of young people are getting caught up in it. Some people are even dying because
Yes.
of drinking them at bedtime and they don't wake up because it's too much for their heart.
Yes.
So, so those drinks are very dangerous. But a lot of times people get caught up in it without realizing it, and then they start drinking more and more and more, and then they start feeling jittery, and they're like, "What's happening?" And then, you know, it's just became an addiction without even thinking about it. So, so being careful about what you drink and what you eat, especially when times when you're feeling depressed, because what you're doing is self-soothing.
Yes.
Anything that have milk, sugar, sweets, anything that's creamy tend to be self-soothing. For some people, it's even mac and cheese. So,
Yeah.
so anything like that is what we call self-soothing foods. They're things that makes you feel good for the moment. But then you go through the cycle of because you know you're hurting your body. So you just had this whole thing of ice cream and you know it's too much sugar, it's too much fat. You know you're hurting your body. So then you feel guilty. But you're feeling guilty about hurting yourself. So that guilt, where can it go? You're self harming. So then it feeds the depression because
Yes.
that's anger at yourself, but it's turned inward. So then that feeds the depression because you can't, you can't put it on somebody else or you can't hurt somebody else or said somebody else did it because you did it to yourself. So then you feel bad about what you did to yourself, but it's you.
Yes.
So it just keeps that cycle going because then you're angry with yourself, you get depressed because you're just hurting yourself more, and it just keeps that vicious cycle going.
So it's basically self-sabotage, right?
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
definitely.
Yeah. Um, let's talk about physical activity. How important is physical activity for our bodies to help us to maintain how it's supposed to run efficiently?
Well, we go with that saying that says we're made to move. Walking, especially, is a good exercise because it helps us to get the oxygen to our brain. We spend a lot of time in air conditioned settings, so it's good to get outside sometimes and just walk because you have in the air we have negative and positive charge. In the air conditioned, we don't have that balance, and so we want to get outside and just take some deep breaths. When you're going out to your car, take some deep breaths. When you're walking, just in your driveway or wherever, just try to walk as much as possible because that helps to oxygenate your brain. That helps you to be calmer. It helps you to be able to focus more because our brain need oxygen.
Yes.
And the rest of our body does too. And cancer cells can't thrive on oxygen, it thrives on sugar. So that is also one of the prevention tips for prevention cancer, along with several others. But that's one of them. Keeping active, having that that exercise, that walk, not too strenuous, like moderate walking,
Okay.
that you can walk, you can talk, but you can't really sing, you know.
Yeah.
But keeping that walking going helps your body.
Now let's talk about solitude versus isolation. I I know for my that I have the tendency, well, I don't think I'm as bad as I used to be, but when I'm going through a tough time, I have the tendency to isolate. I don't want to be around other people.
Mm-hmm.
But I have found that the longer you do it, you may think you're benefiting from it, but you're not.
Mm-hmm.
Now, solitude, personally, I think solitude is a good thing, but I think when you're in, like, it's being intentional. Like sometimes, like, especially after work, you deal with people all the time. And it's like I always say, I'm peopled out. So I need that downtime for myself. So I'd like you to talk about, you know, the benefits of solitude. And I'd like you to talk about the negative effects of isolation.
Okay. With solitude, we all need times where we can times to reflect time to just be still and be quiet. And so solitude is good in measured amounts. Not
Yes.
staying a whole day just like vegging out, vegetating.
Yes.
It's just times where you want to, in the morning or the evening or in the middle of the day, or sometime where you take some time just for reflection time or just to be alone. Or if you're in a grief process, you need some time to be alone when you're grieving and you want some time to be around others. So you want to keep it balanced. Balance is the key when it
Yes.
comes to solitude, keeping it balanced. Isolation, the problem with isolation is that you're cutting off yourself from other people. And that might be a means of making you feel stuck because you may not know it at the time, because sometimes if you're depressed you're not going to want to be around people, so you're not going to realize that what you're missing out. But then when you start feeling better, you're going to realize that, oh, I should be doing this would be more fun to do this with somebody else, or you're going to miss that social part of you. But usually when you're depressed, you want to isolate because you don't want to be bothered. You don't have the mental energy and you feel blasé. So because you feel blasé, you don't want to deal with no anyone else because it takes emotional energy. And so you feel like to cope with the depression, you just isolate. But that makes the depression worse. So we want to force ourselves to get out and to do, and then you'll feel better. And getting something to help with the depression rather than isolating. Getting some supplements or medication, something to get you out of that rut. Because you may not need the medication forever, but sometimes we need that to just to get us to be able to benefit from therapy or to be able to get to that point where we can manage it from there,
Yes.
because most times with depression you have the patterns, and if you don't stay, if you have a baseline, and if you spend too much time below that baseline, then it's hard getting up above the baseline. So you want to at least stay at baseline, and with the supplements or the medication, it doesn't take you high up, it just takes you a little above the baseline so that you're able to function. Because with depression, you're below that baseline, you're all the way down here, so it's hard for you to function. You have to push to get yourself up in order to be able to do. So that's a lot on you. So always recommend you use supplements or use medication, something to get you above so you're able to function. And then you can learn skills to be able to continue to push yourself. But if you're below the baseline, it's going to be difficult to push yourself so much to get above and then to continue on to keep that momentum going as well.
Yes. Yes. I'd like to
Yeah.
welcome Andrew Green. Thank you for tuning in, Andrew. Now, I when I feel depression coming on, there are times when I just feel like I just need a day to myself to stay in bed or whatever it is. Is it okay to do that? Or as soon as we feel it coming, is it better to maybe take a walk or do something that will help us maybe get out of that mood?
Okay. So that depends. If you're not really tired, if you already had a night's rest and you're just feeling sluggish, then you need to get up. If it's that you're tired physically or mentally, then you need to rest. So
Okay.
if you know you had 7.5, 8 hours of rest, then you need to get up and get on a schedule. With depression, you need to maintain a schedule. We were created to work on a schedule. We work with rhythm and cycle. So just like the sunrise every morning, set every evening, and there's a time and a pattern, that's how our bodies were created to work in rhythm, like every day, then create then a 7 days a week cycle. So that's how we are meant to operate. So if we had our sleep and it's time to get up, then we need to get up. So the key thing is knowing, is understanding and maintaining that schedule. Because if you don't have a schedule, then your body don't know when to do what. So then it's, you might think You should be doing this, but your body don't know because you don't have a set time to eat. You don't have a set time to sleep. And it's important because that helps your body to regulate the chemicals based on the activities. And it makes it easier too for you to be able to get up and do because your body will work with you if your body knows what the schedule is. But if it doesn't know the schedule, then it's all over the place. So then it's not able to help you. You're not able to help it because
Yeah.
everything is all over.
Now, for someone that works nights, like I can tell you that it's like my body is in the fight of its life since I switched to night shift. Like sleeping during the day, I don't care how long I sleep, it's just not as refreshing as sleeping at night. So what can a person do that they have to sleep during the day? Because it's like, how can I put it? My mind and my body, it's like there's this resistance to this whole daytime sleep, and
Hmm.
it's been a struggle, I won't lie to you. So how can those of us who work at nights and sleep during the day, how what can we do to help our bodies and our mental health?
Well, that's a difficult one because your body wants what it wants. It wants a night
Yes.
sleep.
Yes. Yes.
So you have to kind of trick it into thinking it's night by having everything as dark as possible and maybe help your body by drinking some the tart cherry or something that helps you to sleep and maintaining that same bedtime in the daytime by having it on the same cycle. The
Okay.
problem with that is that most people don't work every single night. They work either 3 nights or 5 nights or something like that. So then the other 2 nights, it throws your body off. And
Yes.
so you have to decide whether you're going to stay on that same schedule or you're going to try to catch up some night sleep. So that's what makes it hard because then the body, if it's switched, then you have to switch back when it's ready to go back to work.
Yes. Yes.
So
uh,
some people are able to do the switch because they only do 3 nights. So then the other 4 nights, they the other 4 nights they're able to get that night sleep. So I recommend for those people to go to bed as early as possible on those nights so that at least they have some semblance of normal because the body knows the difference. And not having the night sleep creates toxicity in your body because in those hours between 10 and 2 is when your body is kind of cleansing and rejuvenating. And so when you don't have that, your body is not the same and it creates some toxicity. So you have to flush more. You have to do a lot more to keep your body well because of not having that time to rejuvenate, to really flush out everything and start new.
Wow, that makes perfect sense because I'm telling you, I just feel such a difference. It's been a few months, but I just don't feel like the same person. So thank you for that. Andrew is asking, are Black and brown people less likely to be probably diagnosed with depression?
No, the rates are about the same. Um, I haven't seen a difference in terms of the rates. Mostly, we see a difference with people who have the seasonal um, disorder, where people who live in areas where it's dark or the
Yeah.
sun isn't out. We've seen that. Um, but no, we have the same rates, especially in women. Women seem to deal with a lot more depression.
Yeah.
And then there's so many different kinds of depression as well, because you have the postpartums, you have the post strokes, you have those that are from medical issues, and then you have those that are from family that's genetic, and then you have those from ACEs, which is the childhood adverse experiences that also creates the depression. So you have a lot of different sources of depression, and
Yes.
so it varies. But across the board. It seems to be prevalent, especially nowadays.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Let's talk about self-improvement. If a person finds themselves struggling, their body feels out of whack, they know they just have that blah feeling. What are different options that they can take if they've decided, you know what, I need to get myself together?
Okay. I always say that you should get on a program. The program should be multifaceted, including getting therapy, using some kind of something to help the chemicals in the brain. Some people prefer medication, some people prefer supplements, but you need something to help in that, something that works. For some people, one herb might work, some people need a formula. So you need to check and see what works and work with a therapist who's familiar with supplements. And if you prefer medications, and work with a psychiatrist. They usually find something that works for you to balance things out. But it's better to be on something, to do something about it. Because if you don't, it gets worse and
Yeah.
it's harder to recover when you get to a position where you have a hard time getting out of bed.
Yes.
And I've had clients who had that because they didn't take care of things, they couldn't get out of bed. Some of them end up with like physical problems because they let the anger or the depression, sometimes the anxiety get it's so bad that they end up with like Bell's palsy or sometimes other diseases. So you don't want to wait because
Yes.
it only gets worse and it's harder to get up and get going. So the sooner you do something about it, the better. And it's a self compassionate thing to take care of yourself, to choose to get help.
Definitely, definitely. Do relationships play a role in our health, whether it's good or bad? I mean, if we have bad relationships or we have great relationships, I mean, can they affect our health?
Definitely. When we have relationships that are unhealthy, they take a toll on our physical health as well, physical, mental,
Yes.
social, it's just across the board, our spiritual health, because we can't connect the same way with spirituality. Our social context is different because we always feel like we're different or we don't fit in or we don't have nothing to offer because it affects our self-esteem. So it impacts all the different areas of our life because our self-esteem is like the immune system to the emotional health. And it affects our immune system because that stress of a toxic relationship on the body impacts the physical immune system as well. So you have two suppressed immune system, your self-esteem and your regular immune system. And so both are working. And what we see often is what we call nowadays immune disorders, which are autoimmune disorders, really, where a lot of them they don't know what caused it, but from studies we've seen that it's related to emotional health. People who hold on to stuff who haven't processed through, they find out that they have all these diseases, autoimmune diseases that we didn't have. We have diseases like lupus, fibromyalgia. Um, there's several others. Those are the most common nowadays. But there's also another one called I think Raynaud's, and there's several different ones that they flare up when you're under stress. So now they know that they're caused because of emotional and physical stressors. So so yeah, those are some of them. But
No.
autoimmune system, the system is working against itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, stress is a part of life, unfortunately. Stressful jobs, stressful lives. What can we do to counter stress in our lives? I mean, I think I'm doing better as far as stress, but I know I still have a long way to go. What can we do if we have if we have stressful lives to tone it down a bit or to cope with it without it leading to depression and all these other things?
Well, important thing is creating balance and creating boundaries. So the B words, balance and boundaries. With balance, you don't want to stay too long focused on things or work, or you want to kind of change up things. And something that's stressful, you want to then do something that's more relaxing. So you don't want to stay in a high stress time for too many hours. You want to change it up and balance it out with less lower stress activities.
Yes.
So balancing the activities and then spending time just kind of rejuvenating, getting out, just if you can't actually physically get out, then you want to, in your mind, let yourself go to a calm, peaceful, just just a relaxing place so that you can rejuvenate. Because if not, you're staying in a high stress for too long and the chemicals are being released so much that you're staying high. And then after every high, there's a low. So then you're going to have the time of that you're low. And some people think that they're bipolar because they have these highs and lows, but most times it's not. It's just that we're not regulating our emotions. So we go into these extremes because of the
Yes.
chemicals. So yes, so you're up and down, but it's because of the chemicals being released when you're not regulating and not changing activities to match. Because yes, we're gonna have maybe a stressful job or a stressful day, but we don't want to live like consistently with in a stressful situation like that because it leads to burnout.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes, I mean, definitely, definitely. One of the things I had to do, like with my job, it's like once I clock out, I don't have a problem putting my phone on do not disturb. I don't
mhm,
have my work email, I don't have the notifications on because I'm
mhm.
like, when I'm not working, I'm not working.
Yeah, you're off.
So yeah. And I found that did help me a lot as far as stress.
Good.
I'd like to welcome Maxine. Thank you so much for tuning in, Maxine. I'd like us to address screen time. Does it affect our health?
Yes, screen time, that's a big one. And they're doing more and more studies and coming up with the same thing. I guess they think that somehow they're going to come up with a different answer, or they're trying to do bigger studies, younger kids, older kids,
Yes.
adults. But all the studies are saying the same. The screen time is affecting our brain, and the social media is affecting anxiety, our mental health, anxiety, and depression. That has been continually um, researched and found to be true. The lights on our devices, they put on the blue light screening now. They're trying to do things to negate the effects, but most of it is still not having the impact they thought it would have because the light, especially before bedtime, it keeps your eye because our brain is connected through our eyes or ears, all the senses feed into the brain. And so when we have all of this stuff active, and sometimes people want to sleep with a TV, or it keeps the brain in an active mode. And so you don't have the rest that your brain needs. And so you get up still feeling tired because you weren't totally off. So that light does impact you. And so the screen time, you want to limit it and you want to also change activities. You don't want to stay on a screen for hours and hours. Some people have a hard time looking up and looking away. You have to do that every half hour. So limiting the screen time is important.
Yeah, and I think we're all, it's like I have a bad habit of every time I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm checking my phone. What am I checking it for? I don't know, but it's like it has become a habit. And
Hmm.
I have concerns for the younger children because it's like I see so many kids like 5 and under with these phones with the
Yeah.
tablets and I mean, is that good for them? I mean, it doesn't seem that it would be.
No, it's definitely affecting their developmental um, the developmental life and the fine motor skills. It's affecting the way that they develop because they're not touching things and moving things as they're supposed to. Everything is on the screen, they slide, and they're not getting a full range of activities that help them to develop. Even some children are not getting full frontal lobe development because they're not having that side by side activity with parents. They're just everything is a screen. So they're not making cookies, building this, doing things with their parents or with their peers. Like you see them playing, or they come and they all sit down on their phones. So they're not interacting and playing.
I
So
was
they're not,
about to ask you, it's
yeah.
like socially, because I've noticed like it's not the same, my observation of what I've seen with children. And I've noticed that, like, I think some parents think, okay, my kid can just listen to a story on their tablet. I don't think anything replaces a parent telling the kid a story, a kid
Yeah.
sitting on a parent's lap with an actual book.
Yeah, they miss that touch. And touch is important for feeling loved and for
Yes,
connection. And it also helps with your immune functioning. Your T cells are increased when you have that touch.
yes,
So the children are they're suffering, they're losing out from not having the amount of touch that they need to have and spending time on these gadgets. And parents are using it for babysitters, and it seemed easy at the time, but in the long run, it's costing. It's going to
yes.
cost.
Yeah, I definitely believe that. I'd like to welcome Dorcia, and you got the book. Okay, good. I can't wait for you to tell me what you think about it. Now, let's talk about time management. You know, with us, most of us work. We have busy lives. We may be volunteering and doing things outside of work. We still have home life. Is I'm a person, I like to schedule things, and I
Mhm.
find I function best. Now I'm still making the adjustment since I switched to nights. I found it a little harder, but I have found that, okay, if I tell myself on my day off I'm going to take 2 hours to clean or whatever it is, but if I decide I'm going to write down when I'm doing things, I found that it helps me a lot, and it does take away some of the stress because I was feeling very frazzled and out of control because I was falling behind in my housework, falling behind in different things, and just felt I was pulled in so many different directions. So, how important is time management to our health?
Time management is important because, like I said, we work on cycles. And sometimes when we try to do too much, we end up not doing much. So, like you say, it's good to have like a to do list, and you want to make it the day before because sometimes you don't sleep as well because you're thinking about all what you have to
Yes,
do.
it's
So
true.
before you leave the office, if it's stuff that you have to do on your day off, then you want to write it down that evening so that by the time you get up the next day, you get up fresh and you hit the list. But if you try to make it the morning, sometimes your night isn't as good because you're worrying about all the different things. And then sometimes when you have the list and you're trying to do too much at one time, you're all over the place. So we want you to focus. So it's focused on one thing at a time. And
Yes.
maybe you do a easy, then a hard, or easy. You kind of mix it up. You don't want to do all the easy things and then all the hard things because, so you want to do maybe one or two easy, then something hard. And so you feel like you're accomplishing, but you
Yeah.
don't want to leave all the hard for last because then you're low on energy and those tasks takes more. So then you're going to feel like stuck. So you want to do a easy, then do a hard, then a easy, then. So you kind of balance it out.
Now, let's say that you have a lot to do, but you're just tired. You've been working a lot, and so do we push through and try to get some of the work done, or do we just give in to to the rest? Like, my body is crying for rest. So is it best at that time to say, you know what, I'll do laundry tomorrow because I really need to sleep? How important is that?
That's very important because your body is telling you something. And even if you try to do, you're not going to be as effective. You're not going to accomplish as much. You're not going to be as productive. So you're there trying to do it, but you get less done. So it would be better if you just went to sleep, get that rest. And my motto is always take care of the living first and then the dead.
Yes.
So so we want to make sure that you stay living and those dead things could wait for another time. But your health is more important. So you want to take that rest, write it down for the next day, what you're going to do, and then you pick it up the next day. But trying to push yourself, especially when you're tired, it just makes you feel more sluggish and you're not accomplishing anyway. So you might as well have gone to bed.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Now, for a person that's working two jobs, you know, I mean, what advice would you give to them as far as rest and trying to be on a schedule? Because, I know there are so many people who are just burnt out. They're working, and I know I've heard some people say, well, they can get by without sleep, but sleep is vital. We really need our sleep. So, what would you say to that individual who is like, they're just burning, they're burnt out, and they know they still have, I mean, people do what they have to do, the two jobs, whatever it is. What advice would you give to that person?
I would say reevaluate your life, reevaluate and see, because it might seem like you're doing without the sleep now, but it will catch up with you.
Yes.
So you're going to suffer for it later. So reevaluate and see what could give, what areas you can kind of make something else work to readjust so you can get some sleep, because we are made to operate on a cycle, daily
Yes.
cycle and then weekly cycle of rest 1 day a week and then continue the cycle. So so I would say try to work something out because it will catch up with you. You will have the effects, like I was explaining about the toxicity in the body if you're not resting and getting rejuvenated.
To the individual who is feeling mentally and physically drained, what would you suggest to that person?
They're experiencing burnout and something has to change because you can't keep going like this. And I've worked with a lot of clients dealing with burnout. Some of them work burnout, some of them caregiver burnout, some of them a combination of both, being a caregiver and still working. And
Yes.
so that has to be addressed. And what we do is we work on taking some of the things off their plate. What can you take off your plate? What can somebody else do? What services could a community service do? Or what's how we can kind of allocate those things to somebody else, because it's too much and you can't do it long term. So short term it might be okay, but long term it's just going to make you feel so depleted that you're going to be non-functional. I've had people, they don't want to get out of bed because they don't want to face their day. They don't want to deal with work because they took on more than they could handle. So we slowly start taking things off their plate. We slowly have the supervisors change things because they just gave them more, because the more they did, the more they gave them. And
Yes.
so they get to a point where they're burned out. And now I say, okay, now you have to start giving back. So we have them talk to the supervisor and start giving things back, putting healthy boundaries in place and only doing what their job is and maybe one other thing that they like, but not all the other things that they were given. So it's bringing it back into balance because
Yes.
we are pushed out of balance and we have to bring it back in.
I remember years ago, one of the drivers that I was working with, he said that he's not working more than 40 hours a week. He said anything over 40 hours a week, it's blood money and it's not worth it to him. He was like, you need to get your rest. And I
Mhm,
remember a couple of years ago, I was working like 7 days a week. And then
mhm,
about 6 months later, I went down to 6 days a week. But by the end of that year, oh my gosh, I felt so burnt out, and
mhm.
yeah, the money was great, but at the end of the day, I don't think it was worth it,
Yeah.
because I was just that burnt out. So I
Mm-hmm.
realized then the importance of rest, the
Mm-hmm.
importance of, I mean, proper rest, because
Yeah.
I would think, okay, I'm lying in bed, but if I'm just always thinking about work or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, it's like my mind never really had a break, and I
No,
never
you're not turned off.
yeah, yeah, I would never do that again. I would never do that again because
Well,
it
because you
just
experienced the cost.
yes,
You
yes,
didn't know the cost at the time.
yes, it's the truth. It's the truth. I can speak from experience. Now for those of us who are like, okay, and you know, a fresh start. You said something about a program. So is it something like we would go to a therapist or go to a doctor, or what do we do if we're saying, okay, you know what, I'm tired, this, I'm burnt out. I want to start over. How do we start that?
By bringing things into balance. First, if because at that point you're not even able to think, so it's best to get a counselor, a coach, somebody to help you to start reining things in. And once you start seeing that there's hope, then you're going to keep working to bring things back in balance. Because you got out of balance gradually, and so you're going
Yes.
to have to get back in balance gradually. Not everything all at once, but recognizing the important things in your life that needs to be in balance, the laws of nature. And so there's a program called Life Start. And
Okay.
so I recommend that program because it helps you to get things back in balance. The L stands for liquids, getting your liquids, making sure you get that water in and good liquids in your body. I is for inter interactive relationships. So you're in relationships because we all need others. So those relationships are important. And then F is food, and E is exercise, and so life. And then start is the same thing we use for the new start, which is sunlight. And T is temperance, which is mean balance, keeping everything in balance. And A is air, and R is rest, and T is trust in God. So that's similar to the New Start program. So I recommend that. And to get a counselor to help you with navigating the other part, whether it's at work or your home life or caregiving roles or whatever areas that you've been out of balance with, bringing it back into balance.
Yes. Yes. Now, would you say for a family, if mom is working and she's burnt out, and there are like four or five of the people at home, would you say that it's time to sit down and have a family meeting, and it's like, look, if we all share the load, then maybe it'll make life easier for everyone. How important is it to have that communication within the family where one or two members of the family is not feeling burnt out, where everyone is sharing the load?
Well, sometimes the conversations don't work because they get so accustomed of that person over functioning. So I
Yes.
always recommend that person to quit over function to bring it down. And if that person is not doing it, somebody will pick it up. But if they keep doing it, then so they have to see that that person needs respite. That person has to take respite and say, I'm going
Yeah.
away for 2 weeks. And whoever is going to, somebody is going to have to step up because it has to be done. But as long as that person is there and doing it, nobody's going to step up. So I always recommend that that person take respite. However, they
Yes.
need to get out of the situation and go on a campground, wherever it is they need to get away, just to be able to function and know that these people could get along without them. Because like just like on the work, the more you do at home, the more they expect you to do. So so cutting back on that and bringing it back into balance is the only way that person will be able to rejuvenate and to be able to come back and
Yes,
decide, okay, now I come back after 2 weeks, I'm only going to do this and this. I'm not touching anything else. So then it's when the conversation is usually better because when you do it before, they're not listening.
true.
So when you leave and they see how much work that you were doing, or they see how much I do it all the time with clients at work too. When
Yeah,
they're like, who, all these calls, or who is doing this, and they realize how much work you were doing because
yeah,
you when you're there, they take it for granted.
yeah, yeah. That is so true. Shirley, thank you. I really appreciate this conversation. Do you have any closing thoughts for the viewers?
Sure. I would just like to say two key things: staying in balance and keeping healthy boundaries. So staying in balance and keeping healthy boundaries will help you in healing. And if you have any trauma, anything, get help, because the sooner you get help, the healthier your life will be. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'd like to wish everyone a blessed week. And thank you so much for tuning in. And I'm asking you to share this video with someone that you think may benefit from it. Thank you so much.